Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm making Somali pancake, also known as in Somali as Anjera or Lahoh. I've added 2 cups of water in here already, and next I'm adding half a cup of water. So in here we have 2.5 cups of water. For measurements, when they say cup in recipes, they mean something small like this, not a big mug. So I'm using this to measure everything. So I've put in here 2.5 cups of water. Next, I'm going to add half a cup of yogurt. Oops. I'm gonna add half a cup of yogurt in there. The next thing that will go in is 1 tablespoon of sugar. You can use brown or white sugar. I have this brown demerara sugar at home. You need to add this to activate the yeast. Next, I'm going to add the yeast. So here I am adding the yeast. This is 1 teaspoon of yeast. So far we have in here 2.5 cups of water, 1 tablespoon sugar, 1 teaspoon of yeast, and half a cup of plain yogurt. The yogurt will give it a nice sour taste. Somalis like their pancake, Injera or Lahoh, to have a nice sour taste. Usually they achieve this by making the batter the same way I'm making it. But instead of adding the yogurt, usually they leave the batter out for the whole night or up to 24 hours or even up to 2 days to give it a nice sour taste. So we're just adding the yogurt as like a cheat to make the whole process quicker so we can have a sour taste. And we're just going to leave the batter to rest for maybe half an hour to an hour. So next things that's going to go in is the flour and then the semolina. Okay, I've added 1 cup of flour, and now I'm adding the second cup of flour, so 2 cups of flour. And then we're going to add the semolina next. Half a cup of semolina, fine semolina. Instead of semolina, you can use cornmeal, fine cornmeal. I prefer cornmeal because I prefer the taste, but I cannot find cornmeal where I am. But you can find it in the UK, America, Canada, Europe. You can find cornmeal easily, but where I am, you cannot find cornmeal easily. So I'm using semolina instead. You can also use millet flour. So I'm gonna add half a cup of semolina. But instead you can use millet flour or sorghum flour, or cornmeal flour, fine cornmeal flour. So now I'm going to add in fine semolina. I've used plain flour. I've used plain all-purpose flour. So I have to add baking soda to make it rise a little bit. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of baking soda. But before that, I'm adding the half a cup of the semolina. It is not as fine as I thought. You can get finer semolina, but this is fine. This will work fine. So next I'm going to add the 1 tablespoon of baking powder. So now I'm adding the tablespoon of baking powder. It's not a full tablespoon, but it's more or less a full tablespoon of baking powder. And next I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. You need the salt to activate the flour and the baking powder. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon. So here I am adding the teaspoon of salt. Sorry, some of it already spilt in there. So that's a teaspoon of salt. And next I'm going to blend all this together. I will show you the consistency. If it's too thick, I will be adding a bit more water, but it should be okay, I think. But if it's too thick, we'll be adding water. So I'll show you while I blend this. So if you don't have semolina or cornmeal or millet flour or sorghum flour, you can use half a cup of oats, fine oats that are like almost powder form. You can use oats instead. So now I'm going to blend all this together. So here I have it on the on the blender. You can mix it by hand or by whisk or by electric whisk, but this is the easiest way to just blend it for a few minutes in the blender. I'll show you the end product. So I'm just gonna as you can see, I've stopped halfway through blending it. I'm just making sure all the things stuck to the side are fully mixed with a spoon. It's looking good. The bubbles are very important, because then that's how you will have bubbles in the pancake. So I'm just making sure everything is mixed well and everything stuck to the side is going to be blended properly. And I'm going to carry on blending it. I'm going to take the spoon out, of course. Okay, so the end product should look like this with lots of bubbles. The batter should be thin like this. Some people prefer a thicker batter. You can make this a bit thicker by adding, but this is absolutely fine. But you can make this batter a bit thicker by adding half a cup extra of flour. I told you before, you can use self-raising or plain white flour. If you're using self-raising flour, you don't need to add in the baking soda, the baking powder. But this is perfect now, and I'm just gonna let this sit in a container, airtight container, for an hour up to 2 hours. You can even leave it in here if you wish, but then you can put it in the fridge. You can keep the batter in the fridge for 3, 4, 5 days. At least 3, 4 days, 4, 5 days in the fridge by putting it in an airtight container. So now I'm just going to let this rest for half an hour up to 1 hour, 2 hours. Let the yeast do its work, and then it'll be ready to cook. And I'll show you in the next video how I'll cook this on a small frying pan on the hob. It's quite easy, although the technique takes a little bit of a while to get used to. So this is perfect now and ready. So I'm just going to stop the video here, and in the next video I'll show you how to cook this, because I'm going to let this rest now for an hour and let the yeast do its work with the lid on, with the lid tightly on. Or you can put it in an airtight container. Okay, thank you for watching. Goodbye.